Welcome back to the Rare Coins Collections, treasure hunters, collectors, and all you curious minds who can't resist the thrill of hidden value in everyday coins. Today's episode is going to take us on a deep dive into one of the most surprising pieces of American change you might just have lying around. Yes, we're talking about the 1967 Washington quarter dollar, a coin that most people have spent without a second thought, but some versions of this seemingly common quarter could be worth an absolutely stunning fortune. Now, before you rush to dig through your coin jar, stick with me. Because by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what makes the 1967 Washington quarter so special, what details to look out for, and how a simple 25-cent coin could turn into a life-changing discovery. Let's start with a little history. The Washington quarter has been a staple of American coinage since 1932, originally introduced to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. But the 1967 version? That's where things get really interesting. See, 1967 fell right in the middle of a chaotic and transitional time in American currency history. The U.S. Mint had just stopped using silver in quarters after 1964 due to rising silver prices, and the country was shifting to a more modern, cost-effective coinage system. That meant coins from 1965 through 1967 were struck without mint marks, and the materials were changed to a copper-nickel-clad composition. But here's the twist. Because of the high volume of coins produced during this transition and the fact that mint marks were intentionally omitted, tracking mintage numbers and identifying rare versions became a lot trickier. And as you know, where there's confusion, there's opportunity for something rare and valuable to sneak through the cracks. Now, let's talk about what makes this coin so intriguing to collectors. First off, the rarity isn't about the number of coins made. Over 1 billion Washington quarters were struck in 1967. But finding one in pristine, uncirculated, flawless condition? That's where the hunt begins. See, most of the coins from that year were used heavily in daily life. Tossed in pockets, dropped in vending machines, forgotten in glove boxes. Very few were saved or preserved. And even fewer survived without scratches, nicks, or signs of wear. So when a coin does pop up in top-tier, mint state, condition, it becomes a prize, but it gets better. Some 1967 quarters come with errors. Beautiful, unintentional, and extremely valuable minting errors. These are the kinds of mistakes collectors dream about. Double die obverse, where the image appears doubled due to a misalignment during striking. Off-center strikes, where part of the design is literally missing from the coin's face. Or coin struck on the wrong planchet, like when a quarter was accidentally minted on a dime or nickel blank. These errors are not only rare, they're unique. Collectors go absolutely wild for these mistakes because they're essentially one of a kind. The kind of coin you frame. The kind of coin that gets featured in auctions. And the kind of coin that can command an unbelievable price tag. So how do you know if you're holding a jackpot? Start by checking the condition. Look for a sharp, clean strike with no signs of wear. Use a magnifying glass to inspect the lettering and image. Look at George Washington's profile. Are there any signs of doubling? Are the rims perfectly centered or off balance? The tiniest detail could mean the difference between a regular coin and a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Now here's where it gets really exciting. A coin collector's dream came true not long ago when a perfectly preserved 1967 Washington quarter, complete with a rare minting error and in pristine condition, sold at auction for a jaw-dropping amount. And now, the moment you've been waiting for, that 1967 Washington quarter, the same kind of coin that millions of people spent without a second thought, was sold for $68,000. Yes, you heard that right, $68,000 for a quarter. So the next time you're sorting through loose change, whether it's an old collection, a garage sale find, or just a dusty box from your childhood, keep your eyes peeled for this treasure. Because the right coin, in the right condition, with the right error, could be the ticket to a small fortune. Today, we're diving into a quarter that most people overlook, but a few lucky collectors know could be worth a small fortune. That's right, we're talking about the 1972 Washington quarter dollar. Now, if you're holding one of these in your hand, don't spend it just yet. Because what looks like spare change could actually be a secret jackpot hiding in plain sight. Today, we're going to uncover the details that make the 1972 quarter a true collector's dream. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for and just how much this rare beauty could be worth. Let's rewind to 1972. America was in the heart of cultural and political change. The Vietnam War was still ongoing, the Watergate scandal was brewing, and coins were being produced in the millions to keep up with the growing economy. That year, the U.S. Mint struck hundreds of millions of Washington quarters, using copper-nickel-clad metal, no silver, no mint marks on the Philadelphia issues. On the surface, they seemed like your average, everyday pocket change, but here's the twist: out of those millions, a select few quarters stand out for one major reason: they weren't made like the rest. Some of them came off the minting press with fascinating, valuable errors. And some have survived over 50 years in absolutely pristine condition, something that's extremely rare for a coin that was meant to be used every day. Let's talk about those rare errors that make coin collectors absolutely light up. One of the most sought-after varieties is the double die obverse. This happens when the coin is struck more than once, slightly off-register, causing the letters or features to appear doubled. On a 1972 quarter, if you look closely at the word Liberty or the motto, "In God We Trust," you might see that telltale doubling effect. That alone can send the value of your coin skyrocketing. Another exciting error is the off-center strike. These are coins that were not perfectly aligned during the minting process, causing the design to appear shifted or even missing part of the rim entirely. The more dramatic the off-center error, the more valuable the coin becomes. And then there's the wrong planchet error, when a quarter was mistakenly struck on a blank meant for a different coin, like a nickel or a penny. These are incredibly rare and almost always worth investigating if you come across a strange weight quarter or one that just looks a little off. Now here's what makes all of this even more exciting. While the 1972 quarter was mass-produced, finding one that's not only error-free but also in perfect, uncirculated condition is getting harder every year. Coins that have never been touched, scratched, or passed from hand to hand. Those are what collectors dream of. They're known as mint state coins, and they're graded on a scale from 1 to 70. The closer to 70, the more valuable, and yes, the more jaw-dropping. The price can be E.so. What does all this mean for you? It means that inside an old coin roll, a forgotten drawer, or even mixed in with your everyday change, you might be holding something truly special. The kind of coin that turns heads at auctions. The kind of coin that's more than just history, it's a treasure. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. One rare version of the 1972 Washington quarter, in flawless mint state condition with a dramatic and highly desirable error, recently sold at auction for an unbelievable amount. A coin originally worth 25 cents ended up fetching an astonishing $62,000, yes, you heard that right, $62,000 for a single quarter. So don't ignore that spare change. Take a closer look. Because sometimes, the most incredible things are hiding in plain sight. That old coin in your drawer might just be the key to a collector's goldmine. Today, we're diving into one of those rare gems, the 1990 Washington quarter. Yes, the everyday quarter. The one you might flip to make a decision or feed into a parking meter without a second thought. But this isn't just any quarter. Some versions of the 1990 Washington quarter are turning heads in the collector world for their hidden secrets, fascinating history, and jaw-dropping value. So grab a seat and hang on, because this story is going to make you want to check every single quarter you own. Let's take a trip back to 1990. The U.S. Mint was producing millions of quarters as usual, and the Washington quarter had already become a familiar face to Americans, first appearing in 1932 to commemorate the 200th birthday of George Washington. But even after nearly 60 years in circulation, the design still held power: Washington's strong profile on one side, the proud eagle perched on the reverse, wings spread with American confidence. At first glance, the 1990 quarter might seem common. After all, over 900 million were minted that year. But not all of them were created equal, and that's where things get interesting. See, not every quarter that leaves the mint is flawless. Sometimes, small mistakes occur during the minting process. These errors may sound like flaws, but in the coin collecting world, they're pure gold. Or in this case, maybe silver. These accidental variations are what turn a simple coin into a prized collectible. In the case of the 1990 Washington quarter, some rare versions have been discovered with striking errors. One of the most sought after is the off-center strike. This happens when the coin isn't properly aligned during minting, causing the design to appear shifted or incomplete. The more dramatic the off-center strike, the more valuable the coin, especially if the date is still visible. That's a collector's dream, a coin that's clearly flawed, yet clearly dated. Then there's the double die error, another major prize. This occurs when the die that stamps the coin imprints the design more than once but slightly misaligned. If you've got a 1990 quarter with signs of doubling on the letters, especially on Liberty or In God We Trust, you might be holding something incredibly special, another rare variety. Quarters struck on the wrong planchet, the metal blank intended for another coin. Imagine a Washington quarter accidentally struck on a dime planchet. It's smaller, lighter, and looks totally off. But to a collector, that's a jackpot, and don't even get me started on missing mint marks. Most quarters minted in Philadelphia don't have a mint mark, but if you find a 1990 quarter with a missing or misplaced mint mark that was supposed to be there, especially from Denver or San Francisco, that's another major indicator of rarity. But here's the thing, rarity alone doesn't determine value. Condition matters. A 1990 Washington quarter that's been rattling around in change for decades? Maybe not worth much. But one that's been carefully preserved, barely touched, maybe even in uncirculated or proof condition? That's the kind of coin that collectors chase at auctions and private sales alike. It's the combination of condition, rarity, and those magical minting errors that elevate an ordinary coin to an extraordinary one. Now imagine this, you're sorting through old coins, maybe helping a family member clean out a drawer, or going through your own childhood piggy bank. And you come across a 1990 Washington quarter that looks different. It's off-center, or the lettering looks strange, or maybe it just feels a little too crisp for a coin that's supposedly over 30 years old. Don't ignore it, because if you've got the right one, an error coin in pristine condition, you might be holding a piece worth not just a few dollars, not even a few hundred, but $50,000. That's right. $50,000. So next time you get change from the store, take a second look before tossing those coins in a jar. The 1990 Washington quarter might just be the most valuable thing in your pocket, and you won't even need to flip it to know you've made the right decision. Today, we're unlocking the incredible story behind the 1979 Washington quarter, a coin most people pass around every day without a second glance. But for collectors, this coin is something else entirely. It's a mystery, a masterpiece, and in rare cases, a fortune. So, sit back, coin lovers and collectors, because what you're about to hear might have you digging through your change jars before this video even ends. Let's rewind the clock to the year 1979. America was going through changes. The economy was shifting, gas prices were high, and the U.S. Mint was working overtime producing coins for everyday use. The Washington quarter, already a national staple since its debut in 1932, continued its legacy. On the front, George Washington's iconic profile, stoic and strong. On the back, a majestic eagle, wings spread, clutching arrows, perched with power. It's more than just a coin, it's American history in the palm of your hand. But among the hundreds of millions minted that year, a few 1979 quarters were different. Not obviously different, but secretly, quietly, incredibly rare. And it's these rare examples that have made collectors and numismatists around the world stop and take notice. Now you might be asking, how can such a common coin become so valuable? It all comes down to errors. Yes, minting errors, the kind that only happen once in a blue moon. And in the coin world, errors are like winning lottery tickets, if you know what to look for. One of the most famous errors in the 1979 Washington quarter series is the off-center strike. This happens when the coin blank isn't properly aligned in the press. Instead of a perfect round quarter, you get a design that's shifted, cut off, or dramatically uneven. These off-center quarters are extremely desirable, especially when the date is still clearly visible. Then there's the double die obverse, a collector's dream. This rare error causes the design on the front, particularly the words, "In God We Trust," "Liberty," or the date, 1979, to appear slightly doubled or shadowed. These aren't just scratches or smudges. These are minting mistakes, preserved forever in metal. And when found in clean, uncirculated condition, they can command serious attention from collectors. Another error that stirs excitement is the clipped planchet, where a portion of the coin is literally missing, a bite taken out of the edge, caused during the punching process. It might look damaged to the average eye, but to a seasoned collector, it's a factory-born flaw that makes the coin even more special. Now let's talk about condition. Even with all these potential errors, the value of a 1979 quarter skyrockets only when the coin is in outstanding shape. I'm talking about coins that were never used, never dropped, scratched, or circulated. These coins are called mint state, and they shine like the day they were born. Combine a mint state condition with a rare error, and you've got a coin that collectors would fight over. There are even special 1979 quarters struck in proof condition for collectors, often made at the San Francisco Mint. These coins are mirror-like, with incredible detail and finish. If you ever find a 1979 quarter with an S mint mark and it looks unusually sharp and glossy, you might be holding something really special. But wait, it gets even better. Because within this series, a few ultra-rare examples have shown up with multiple errors, like a double die and an off-center strike. These multi-error coins are extremely scarce and incredibly valuable. They are the unicorns of the numismatic world, and if you're lucky enough to find one, you're not just holding a coin, you're holding history. Now here's the moment you've been waiting for. If you happen to come across one of these rare 1979 Washington quarters, maybe with a dramatic error, in pristine uncirculated condition, or perhaps a proof coin with a unique flaw, then you might be looking at something far more valuable than 25 cents. In fact, some of these rare 1979 Washington quarters have been known to sell for as much as $74,000. Yes, you heard that right. $74,000. The next time you find a quarter jingling in your pocket or lying in a forgotten coin jar, take a closer look. Look for the year. Look for anything strange. You never know, your next small change could lead to a big discovery. A coin that's flipped, spent, and forgotten in pockets, glove boxes, and vending machines across America. But what if I told you that one of those ordinary coins, one from the year 1965, could secretly be worth more than a brand new luxury car? That's not a myth. That's the real magic of the 1965 Washington quarter, a coin that hides its value in plain sight, and in the right condition, could make your jaw drop. So before you dismiss that old change lying around your house, sit back, and listen closely. Because this is a story that every coin collector, every treasure hunter, and every curious viewer is going to want to hear. Let's start with why the year 1965 matters so much. It marked a turning point in U.S. coinage history, a year of transition, confusion, and a little bit of chaos at the mint. Prior to 1965, quarters were made of 90% silver. But rising silver prices pushed the government to make a big change. So starting that year, quarters were switched from silver to a clad composition, a copper-nickel mix with no silver at all. That means 1965 was the very first year of the modern, non-silver quarter. But here's where it gets interesting. Because during that transition, the mint was still phasing out the silver blanks from previous years. And in the rush to keep up with demand, a few 1965 quarters were accidentally struck on those old 90% silver planchets. That wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. And those mistakes, those rare silver 1965 quarters, are now some of the most valuable error coins in the entire series. To the untrained eye, they look just like any other coin. But there are ways to tell. A silver 1965 quarter weighs slightly more than its clad counterpart. A normal clad quarter weighs about 5.67 grams, while a silver one will tip the scale closer to 6.25 grams. And then there's the sound. A silver quarter has a distinct ring when you drop it, a sharper, higher pitch than the dull thud of clad coins. That's music to a collector's ears. But the silver error isn't the only thing that makes 1965 quarters special. Some rare 1965 quarters feature double die errors, where the coin was struck twice with a slight misalignment. This can cause doubling on the letters or numbers, especially around the words, Liberty, In God We Trust, or the date itself. These are subtle flaws, but incredibly valuable to collectors who know how to spot them. And then there are off-center strikes, quarters that were misaligned during minting, creating a crescent moon effect on one side. The more off-center the strike, the rarer the coin becomes, especially if the full date is still visible. Combine that with a clean surface and no circulation damage. Now you're talking about a coin that people would line up to bid on. Some 1965 quarters even have planchet errors, like being struck on a dime blank. Imagine a quarter-sized design, squished onto a smaller, thinner piece of metal. That's not just an error. That's a one-of-a-kind oddity that collectors go wild for. But here's the real secret: condition is everything. Most 1965 quarters have been used for decades. They've seen pockets, purses, laundromats, and drive-thrus. But if you find one in mint condition, maybe it was stashed away in a roll, or forgotten in a drawer for 50 years, then you've got something truly special. Uncirculated coins, especially those with luster, no scratches, and full detail, are incredibly rare from that era. Now add an error on top of that. That's like winning the lottery for collectors. Imagine finding a flawless 1965 quarter, clean, sharp, shining, and struck on a silver planchet. That coin would not just be rare, it would be a showpiece, and believe it or not, there are collectors out there who will pay a small fortune for it. So the next time you come across an old quarter, don't overlook it. Flip it, feel it, weigh it if you can. Listen for that silver ring. And if you think you've got something special, don't spend it. Protect it, research it, maybe even have it appraised, because if you're lucky enough to be holding one of the rare 1965 Washington quarters in near-perfect condition, with a mint error or a silver planchet, it could be worth as much as $76,000. That's right. $76,000. For a coin that most people would toss in a tip jar without thinking twice. So keep your eyes open, collectors and treasure hunters. Sometimes the greatest treasures aren't buried in the ground or locked away in vaults. Sometimes, they're hiding in your change, waiting to be discovered. If you found this story fascinating, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next hidden gem. There are more coins out there worth big money, and we're just getting started. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep searching, keep collecting, and remember, history is just one coin away.